Good evening, everyone. Welcome. Are you all hearing me? Good evening, everyone. Welcome. How are you?
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, sir. Very good.
Pleasant evening, sir.
Okay.
Afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Welcome.
Good
welcome.
afternoon.
Good day.
Afternoon, sir. How are you going?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I cool.
All right. Let's have to meet some people. Okay. All right, everyone. Good evening again. I'll break a bit here and there to admit persons into our chat. But welcome, good evening. I am Reagan Rowans. I'm the principal of ILAS. Welcome. It's my pleasure to make your acquaintance. Some of you I know, some of you I don't know, but this is a very important matter that require our cooperation. So welcome, and I thank you for joining us. Yeah. So today's discussion will be aided by a presentation. Just for the sake of sharing some information with you, all of which I can share in the 1 hour that I allotted for this webinar. This session is intended to be interactive, so at times I'll ask for any questions you may have. If you wish to interject, you can of course use the hand signal, and or you can just type it in the chat, and I can get to the question. Of course, after the session, I will entertain questions, as many as you have. So without further ado, let me just introduce the slides. And this has been recorded. So of course, we will upload it to our page thereafter. And you can look at it. Of course, you can take some pictures of the slides if you so wish. Yeah. So why are we here? Well, as you know, in order to become an attorney in Trinidad and Tobago and most other places, you're required to undertake 2 levels of training. That is the academic stage of training and the vocational or practical stage of training. Most persons at the moment, I think, who are in attendance are still doing the LLB, which would be your academic stage of training. I think some of you would have completed your LLB and therefore you are awaiting your vocational training. In Trinidad and Tobago, the vocational training options are varied. As you know, of course, we have the LPC, we have Fielding Law School, we have the BPC, and there are in fact a few other options. More difficult ones, but there are a few other options. The main option, however, is in fact the LPC. But as some of you may know, the LPC is being phased out and replaced with something called the SQE, which is the Solicitor's Qualifying Examination. Yeah. This meeting is to help us understand the details regarding same and the steps forward to have the SQE recognized in Trinidad and Tobago as one of the qualifying routes to be called to the bar of Trinidad and Tobago. So what I'll do, I'll give some information, basic information that I think you have already, but I will get to the crux of the matter in a few minutes thereafter. Let me just admit a few of your colleagues. Yeah, okay. So are you all seeing my slides?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, excellent.
Yes, sir.
All right, okay, hold on. Okay. So this really would be what we're focusing on today. The status of the LPC, a bit on the SQE. I'm sure you have some interest in that. The impact of this change on existing law students and those who have recently graduated, and those who, of course, wish to be called to the bar. And how are we going to treat with the SQE in Trinidad and Tobago? Yeah? Okay. So, oh, that's okay, excellent. So for information's sake, as you know, the provision of vocational training in Trinidad and Tobago is governed by the treaty establishing the Council of Legal Education. This treaty established the 3 law schools in the Caribbean, which we know are Hewing Law School in St. Augustine, Trinidad, Eugene Capuchin in Bahamas, and of course, Norman Manley Law School in Jamaica. And per Article 3 of the treaty establishing the Council of Legal Education, they accept, of course, an LLB degree from the University of the West Indies or an equivalent LLB, as well as the legal education certificate that is only available from one of the 3 law schools established by the treaty, the Council of Legal Education. Yes. However, people are just joining 1 second. In Trinidad and Tobago, particularly in the year 2000, the government passed a law, more specifically an amendment to the Legal Profession Act, Chapter 9003, which inserted Section 15(1)A, which is before you. And this allowed for the LPC, the legal practice course, to be a qualifying route or one of the options that one can complete in order to gain entry into the legal profession, specifically in Trinidad and Tobago, and specifically for Trinidad and Tobago citizens. So you see there under paragraphs C and D, you'll see anyone who has passed either the bar vocational course and D has passed the legal practice course. Following thereafter 6 months training, you would have satisfied requirements to be called to the bar. So there's very specific reference to the LPC in our law. Yeah, okay. Now, in 2021, the UK introduced the SQE, which is again the Solicitor's Qualifying Examination, to replace the LPC. This has been in flux for a few years before that, and even after 2021, there has been a great degree of uncertainty about it, but it was formally introduced in 2021 with exams to follow a few months after. Several reasons for this. Many of those reasons aren't particularly relevant to you, but they felt that it may be a more efficient way of having persons access the legal profession. Now, it's important to point out to you that in Trinidad and Tobago, our legal profession is a fused profession. We do not recognize 2 distinct arms, unlike in the UK. The UK's legal profession is bifurcated. So there are 2 arms. We have solicitors and we have barristers. As you may know, barristers are those who advocate before the court. Solicitors do not advocate before the court. So you can, of course, be a solicitor or a barrister, and there are separate training courses for each arm. Yeah. So our law, Section 15(1)A of the LPA, permits us to use the LPC, and of course, it is in fact a cheaper option and a more flexible option than others that currently exist. Now, our concern is that the SQA is not yet recognized in Trinidad and Tobago. And in addition to that, the SRA, which is the Solicitors Regulation Authority, the body in the UK responsible for solicitors, has established or indicated a cutoff date in order for persons to continue to do the LPC. Let me clarify. So the SQE being introduced in 2021, they felt it fair to give LLB students who study the LPC, and even those who prefer the LPC over the SQE, some time to complete their studies and rely upon the LPC to be called to the bar as solicitors in the UK. Good. Now, ideally, students have until, now listen to me carefully, I have some dates to share. Students have until 2032 to complete the LPC. However, the LPC has to be completed between 1 to 5 years. So students must be given at least 5 years within which to complete the LPC, which means that according to the SRA rule and the SRA ultimate cutoff point for the LPC being 2032, you must enroll by 2027. So 2027 will be the last date for students to enroll in the LPC. However, if you were to count backwards from 2017, you'll end up at 2021, a 6-year period. So with the introduction of the SQE in 2021, those students who had already started or were just starting their LLB, which has a maximum period of 6 years in which it must be completed, would have been given that time frame to do the LPC. So you have from 2021, 6 years with 2027, and from 2027 to 2032, you have 5 years for the LPC. Yes? So this 2021 SRA cutoff date is applies to those students who would have started the LPC. So it means then that everyone who applied from before joined the program in 2021 and before, they can do the LPC. That means, people, that all students who started the LLBs after December 2021 are not eligible to do the LPC. Are we clear? I know those dates may have confused you a bit, but that really was my explanation as to why and how they came up with 2027 as the last enrollment date, 2022 as the ultimate last year for offering the LPC, and the cutoff date of 2021. Now, of course, the first batch of students who completed the LLBs and who started in 2022, they are now facing the effects of this, because this year would have been the first year we've had graduates since 2022. Those students would have done the graduate route or graduate entry for the LLB. Yeah. So that is our concern. Yeah. Now, most providers, most universities who offer the LPC, they have already stopped offering the LPC. Most universities have long phased it out, and they have now put their resources towards the SQE. Yeah. So I know many of you here may not be affected, but I think most of you may be affected if you started your degree after December 2021, roughly speaking. Get me? Now I'll keep it slow as I can so you can appreciate what we are saying. Yeah. Now, 1 second, Navish, right? So this here is an extract from the SRA's transitional arrangements. And you see what I just told you. They give you varying options depending on the circumstances as to who can still qualify to do the LPC. But the ultimate cutoff would have been December 2021. Yeah. Mahabir, you want to ask a question now before we move on? No? All right. Okay.
Yeah, sorry. Good day. Just to clarify. So if you started the LLB after September 2021, this SEQ will apply to me.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, as a matter of speaking, yes. So in terms of eligibility, that this will be your option in the distance course. Yeah.
Cool.
All right. So although we spoke about 2027, etc., those students who started the LLB before 2022, they can still do the LPC. Let's be very clear about that. You with me? And you have until 2027 roughly to enroll in the LPC. Yeah. So there are quite a few students who would have started 3-4 years ago. And if you started before 2022, per the SRA's transitional arrangements, you can still do the LPC. Yeah? Okay. Now, you can find all this information on the SRA's website. It's very, very informative. So in case you're wondering, you can access him there. Yeah. Now, the LPC, again, according to the University of Law, they endeavor or will endeavor to provide tuition for the LPC until 2027. Now, I keep using that date. That is a ULaw date. Most universities are no longer offering it. And that's because most jurisdictions do not use the LPC. Of course, most LPC students would have been from the United Kingdom. And of course, all new students now have to do the SQE. So the numbers are, of course, dwindling in terms of who would be interested in doing the LPC. And of course, people, it's a business, and they were very clear about that. So while they intend to run the LPC until 2027, let's hope that they do. For those of you who may take some time after you complete your LLB to do the LPC. But keep in mind, 2027. With me? Okay. Now, a bit about the SQE, since this will affect a lot of you, and then I'm going to get to what our plans to have it introduced into Trinidad. So I did share a number of slides because people have a lot of questions on the SQE, but I will keep it as brief as I can. So the SQE, called Solicitor's Qualifying Examination, it's fashioned after the US exam or the various bar exams in the various states of the United States. So there's no universal exam in the US for every state. Each state has its own bar exam. And so you can try the exam several times and hope that you pass it at some point in time. So the LPC would have been offered by specific universities, examined by specific universities. It would have been their LPC. Of course, adhering to the standards of the SRA. But the SQE is not per university. The SQE is now a universal exam in the UK. So no matter which law school you'd have gone to, you have to sit the same LPC, the same SQE exam. Yeah. Kaplan University has been, let's see, is an education provider linked to the US under Pearson. They're the one providing, at least for now, contracted with the SRA to run the examinations. So no matter which university you go to, there's one exam you're writing, and people, these exams, you'll see in a while, they're largely multiple choice exams. So the SQE has two parts, right? Now keep in mind, let me just clarify that even if some of you are still eligible to do the LPC, you can still opt to do the SQE. Yeah? So let's say, for example, you did start your program before 2022. If the SQE is accepted in Trinidad, let's say hopefully soon, you can do the SQE instead of the LPC. That is still an option. So keep that in mind, right? So the SQE has two assessments, what we call SQE 1 and SQE 2. You are required to, of course, pass both of them. Yes? To become a solicitor in the UK, in addition to SQE 1 and 2, you have to acquire 2 years qualifying work experience. That doesn't apply to us too much. Neither is it a very difficult thing. There's great flexibility with these 2 years working experience, qualifying work experience. According to current law in Trinidad, when you do the LPC, you have to train for 6 months. It may be that in Trinidad, they maintain the 6-month period. I really can't say what they will decide, but that's really what they're looking for. So the same way you have some degree of in-service training for 6 months, the LPC, that I guess can be the same thing they're looking for in the UK, that is. If you wish to be called to the bar in the UK, or more specifically England and Wales, you will have to satisfy the requirement of qualifying work experience, which I summarize for you, you'll see in a bit. Yeah. So we are particularly focused on the core SQE assessments, SQE 1 and SQE 2. Yeah. Okay. SQE 1 covers what we call functional legal knowledge, FLK, assessed by best answer multiple choice questions over a 2-day period. Yeah. So I give you a breakdown of functional legal knowledge both parts. They largely cover the same core content of the LPC. You may not know of the LPC's content, some advising you, business law practice, etc., civil. Civil isn't mentioned here, but dispute resolution, contract tort, those things are typically dealt with in civil litigation, and FLK 2. So the questions will be informed by these areas. And of course, universities provide tuition for the SQE. But ultimately, they are preparing you to write the SQE exam. Of course, universities like the University of Law, they run an LLM in the SQE 1 and 2. So you have a qualification, as well as, of course, being prepared for the SQE examinations. Yeah. Okay. SQE2 focuses on practical legal skills, which certainly is an improvement on the LPC. So they have the practice areas, which will be relied upon to test these 6 skills: interviewing, advocacy, case and matter analysis, research writing, legal drafting, etc., which I imagine you would value. Yeah. So there's a greater emphasis, arguably, on practical legal skills compared to the LPC. But that's SQ1, and that is SQ1 and SQE1 and SQE2. I'll tend to questions in a bit, right? Don't worry. In terms of the setting of exams for the SQE at the moment are mainly available in the United Kingdom. So you have to travel there to do the exam. Kaplan, of course, Kaplan does provide for exams written internationally, but none of them as yet are in the Caribbean region. So I guess depending on numbers, they may in fact hold exams outside of the UK. But for now, remember, people, these exams are still very new. The SQE was formally introduced in 2021. We are now in 2025. So there have been a few sittings. The pass rate so far is about 51%. Not slightly less than the LPC, actually. The average pass rate for the LPC is 57%. The SQE so far is 51%. Yeah. And of course, you can retake the exam, I think, up to 3 times. Yeah. So we have sittings for SQE1, and when you finish SQE1, you do SQE2. I give you a breakdown of when in the year there are sittings twice per year for SQE1, and SQE2, there are sittings 4 times for the year. Yeah. Okay. In terms of qualified work experience, as I said before, there's great flexibility with this. It may not be a requirement in Trinidad and Tobago because, I mean, in the UK, to be a solicitor, you would have had to do a training contract anyway, which is usually 2 years. Yeah. Here they're asking for some kind of qualifying work experience, and that could be over a period of time. It could have been acquired before you do the SQE, during the SQE, after the SQE. So there is flexibility in terms of what can qualify and when you are required to obtain this qualifying work experience in this version of the solicitor's qualifying exam. Yeah, so there's flexibility there, but hopefully, in terms of law reform in Trinidad, this may not be a requirement. But if it is, there's great flexibility. You know? Okay. Let me just address some of your questions quickly. Second. Tiana, so person completing LLB this year can still apply. We are not too concerned of when you complete your LLB. The issue is when you started your LLB. You with me? Once you finish before 2027, provided that university continues to offer the LPC their resources permitting. So keep in mind the important date is 2021. Once you started your LLB before 2022, you are still you are eligible to do the LPC. Pink Craze, just for clarification, those who started the LPC in 2023, you aren't eligible. That is correct. Yes, I will deal with the recognition of the SQE in a little bit, but that is correct. So once you started your LLB after 2021, you are not eligible to do the LPC. Yes. Janella, LPC course, full-time, yes, it's 9 months. Yes. First semester is 9 months, but universities have now switched to only offering it part-time. Again, because of dwindling resources, which have been transferred to the SQE. Yeah. Okay. Shanice, I started my LLB in 2022. It means you can't do you're not eligible to do the LPC. Once you start after 2021, you're not eligible to do the LPC. Yeah. And this, of course, is in light of the SRA's cutoff date. Yeah. Ramsran, how does this weigh against your winning program as far as recognition in the Caribbean? Well, it's not about recognition in the Caribbean. I mean, thousands of attorneys have done law degrees and vocational training all over the world. When you're called to the bar, you're called to the bar. Yeah. So in terms of the SQE, that's why we're looking to have it recognized in Trinidad. So yes, it's not too big a deal about person recognizing or not recognizing UK qualifications. Yeah. And even much less can I speak on the recognition or recognizability of the LPC or value people attribute to it, particularly regarding employers. So that is to be seen. All right. Pink craze, so those that are in the graduate program and now, you have to sign up for the SQE. Well, yes, once your degree started after 2021, your option in terms of the solicitor's course is the SQE. But remember, the SQE is not yet recognized in Trinidad, and that is why I started with Article 3 of the treaty establishing the Council of Legal Education and the amendment to our LPA that made provision for the LPC. So the same way in 2000 that the LPA made provision for the use of the LPC to be called to the bar, we want that to now happen with the SQE. And that is, in part, the reason for inviting you all here today. Jawad, can we negotiate to get you lot to do a last full time this year? Well, since January, it's just part-time. Yeah. And they are one of the few who are offering it. Well, one of the few recognized universities who are offering the LPC still. Mr. Roberts, can you say what stage the law reform? I'm going to get to that in a minute, right? I'm going to get to the reform issues in a minute. And I promise I'll get to the BPC as well, right? Okay. So SQE training, you can look up the SQE providers. This is an extract from the SRA's website. The SRA has a list of providers. We will see that ULaw is, of course, one of the main providers. I'm not sure how much you know about the University of Law. At some other time, we can do a session on that. But the University of Law is one of the top two legal trainers in the UK. They are together with BPP, two separate universities. They are the top two trainers of lawyers and business executives. Yeah. So while the University of Law's LPC is a few hundred pounds more, keeping in mind the competitors in Trinidad, people should be wary about choosing second-rate universities with which to do their LPC. Just some advice there. Yeah. Okay. And a bit on University of Law's SQE. So they have an LLM in legal practice if the SQE becomes a viable option in Trinidad and Tobago. And while, of course, on average, the pass rate for the SQE is 51%. Let's help mute people's microphones. Okay. So while the average pass rate for the SQE so far is 51%, ULaw has a 78% and 82% pass rate for SQE 1 and 2, respectively. Yeah. So keep that in mind. So what's next? And why are we here principally? Well, we need to reform the law. Now, I have written to the Attorney General 2 letters so far, inviting discussions, and I have available a number of universities lined up to contribute to the consultations, if required, to address the issue of the outgoing LPC and the incoming SQE. Let me be frank and let me be honest with you. There is a push against London programs. Let me say that, let me use that term. Good. You may be aware that I think it would have been in 2016, I think thereabouts, or a little after, the High Court had deemed Section 15.1 15-1A of the LPA to be unconstitutional, and for a brief moment deprived LLB students of accessing and being able to rely upon the LPC as a route to being called to the bar. Then the Attorney General was Faris Al-Rawi. He was very helpful. They went to court, obtained an order to suspend the judgment, which allowed for existing students who had either completed the LPC or just wrapping it up to be called to the bar. And then they had rushed through the Court of Appeal, a challenge to the judgment, and the Court of Appeal overturned the judgment. And that is a consequence, or that was a consequence of forces that play in the system that has a preference for the University of the West Indies and, of course, for Caribbean or regional qualifications, which I guess is consistent with the treaty that established the Council of Legal Education. Good. So our meeting here today is to ensure that we remain connected, because if a greater effort is required, then we will have to reach you and get you involved, because when the case came before the court, the challenge before the court to the law, which is Diane Hadid versus the Attorney General, when they sought to challenge what the court said, the court actually sought numbers of students who were affected by the judgment, which went very far in reversing it at the Court of Appeal. So no matter which institution you attend, or whether you are studying independently, or whether you have completed your studies, we will have to rely upon you to push us forward if need be. So I have written to the AG, I wrote to the AG last year, several months ago, outlining the transition from the LPC to the SQE and what the consequences are. And I wrote him again earlier this year, outlining and emphasizing the SRA's transitional arrangements, which gave the cutoff date of 2021 in terms of eligibility to do the LPC. And of course, the immediate impact that is already having on students who completed the LLBs last year. Yeah. They have responded, not substantively though. So we wait to see what will happen. Now, of course, I will keep the pressure up and see what we can do from our end to ensure that the government in this election year pushes it through. Now, my first letter to the AG was sent. I did send it both to the Registrar of the Supreme Court as well as to the Law Association of Trinidad and Tobago, because obviously they play a role in admission to the bar. Yeah, but the power is in the hands of, well, the Attorney General and I guess more generally the government. And of course, I would imagine the government would seek advice on this from all other stakeholders who are relevant to and contribute to and influence decisions about the legal profession. Yes. Now, in order for us to, and I'll keep you updated on this, but understand, and I think you do, the urgency of having the SQE accepted. Now, in my first letter to the Attorney General, which again I forwarded both to the Law Association and to the Registrar of the Supreme Court, I did outline a few proposals to address this. One proposal is that the registrar simply accept the SQE as satisfying the requirements of Section 15(1)A of the LPA, right? That is not ideal, but the reason why I made such a proposal was because of the fact that the registrar has been accepting LLMs, not substantive LLMs. As you know, some universities, you get a free master's top-up with your LPC, like what the University of Law offers. So you graduate with a master's in law. And a few years ago, there was a concern about whether they can accept the LLM. After all, the LPA, the Legal Profession Act, speaks to the LPC, it doesn't speak to a master's in law. But when they look at the contents of the LLM, which covers all the modules of the LPC, plus an additional module that would have passed, they deemed the LLM to meet the requirements of the law. Yes. The only difference between, in terms of content, between the SQE and the LPC is that when you cover, after you cover the core modules of the LPC, you're then able to do a few electives, which would be like specialist areas. but those are just electives. But they would have covered the core practice, the core areas of practice in the LPC, and you'll see that reflected on the SQE1, functional legal knowledge. Yeah, that's one recommendation. But of course, I doubt very much so the registrar will act on that, because it's an entirely new program and not simply an add-on or top-up as with the LLMs in legal practice. And so, of course, the next recommendation made would have been to reform the law. Because you see, while the LPC has been phased out and replaced with the SQE, our law permits the use of the BPC or BPTC or BVC and the LPC. So one element of that has now changed. So I think the powers that be have to become really good to justify not giving a green light to the SQE. But I imagine that in order to make that decision, that they will consult us accordingly, and we will get the appropriate people involved, which of course would be a number of UK universities, as well as the University of London. If need be, I spoke to them already. So we wait on the government's letter or the government's communication as to what is the next step. In a month or two, I'll write them again if we get no feedback, highlighting the urgency of it, and we can see who we can reach to make sure it remains a topical issue. But people, I want you to ready yourselves in the event that we need your input. We have gone down this road already in one way or the other. Our students had assisted in the preparation of the case with Jason Jones. Remember that? You may or may not remember that. But there was a legal challenge, actually, to the Council of Legal Education and the admission criteria to Hewarding. Unfortunately, that didn't go far because they brought the action in the Caribbean Court of Justice, which does not have jurisdiction over the Council of Legal Education, which is a very creative thing they did in the Caribbean. So it's as if the CLE comes across as a law unto itself. But I mean, there's some jurisprudence, at least attempt to establish some jurisprudence on the issue of vocational training in the Caribbean. So people, our option, our main option, keeping in mind many factors, keeping in mind, of course, the continuing struggle with Hewarding and numbers, keeping in mind that the bar professional course is not as flexible as the LPC. After all, for several years now, the LPC has been offered online. If you wish to do the BPC, which I'll get to in a few minutes, it's a bit pricier. And of course, you have to pay for boarding in the UK, which of course will multiply the costs. Yeah. Also, to do the bar course, you have to have a high quality degree. It's very competitive. Very few universities offer the BPC. So students from all other universities in the UK would then go to one of these trainers to do the BPC. So it is very competitive. So financial-wise, access-wise, flexibility-wise, of course, the SQE would be the better option. Yeah. So we'll see what the AG says. And of course, I'll keep you informed. Before I address your questions in the chat, I will, perhaps I can pose this one time. Let's see if I could do that. So I'll post a link in the chat. Let's see what it is. So this is the Google form, very simple form through which you can supply your contact information, just a name and at least your email address. You can include other information which are optional. Yeah. When I post this to our Facebook page, I will post these links as well. But this is to ensure we keep together. And of course, your colleagues who were unable to attend today, maybe you can share it with them as well. But please complete a form so that we can remain connected. I also created a WhatsApp group, SQATT. Yeah. Hold on. I will. So this, of course, I give you a code, well, a bar which you can scan, as well as a link to the group. I guess I can post this as well one time. I'll post it in the chat so you all can click on it and join the group. Of course, you can scan the code, the QR code. Yeah, we're going to take a picture of the slide. I'll get back to the slide, don't worry. Yeah. Super, what next? Well, as I said before, I am in communication with the Attorney General, and we, of course, will pursue this vigorously, as you'd imagine, as we did prior, with the challenge to the High Court judgment. And hopefully, we'll get some feedback soon and we can make some progress. The law is not a very difficult thing to change, but as I said before, there are some oppositional forces, unfortunately. Yes. But of course, we'll do our best to ensure that some progress is in fact made, and as soon as possible. Keep in mind, people, that we appreciate the urgency of this, so we will move accordingly. Yeah. Let's see your questions. Any questions? Okay. In terms of, let me see. Okay. Mahabir, therefore, the option, if the SQ is not accepted in Trinidad, the LAC is the only option. Well, not the only option. It is, in fact, it is an option. The other option is the BPC, which, of course, is a bit prohibitive in terms of cost. But it depends on where you study in the UK. You can find cheaper ones. The University of Law has several campuses across the UK, and the cost for the BPC will depend on where you wish to stay. Yeah? Yes, so you will see the fees in a little bit. I'll share that with you as well. Shanice, it's part-time since January of this year. Since January of this year, the LPC is fully part-time. Yeah, it started already. At ULAW, can you pursue the LMSQE full-time for 1 year? Yeah, you can. But remember that the goal is to write the SQ1 and 2 exams. With me? So once you finish the LLM in SQ1 and 2, then you will then have to write the exams, which are not set by ULAW. ULAW is the trainer. Yeah, but of course, they do have a very high pass rate. I mean, we have lawyers in Trinidad who wish to be called to the bar of Guyana. As you may know, Guyana does not recognize the LPC. So if you did the LPC and you were called to the bar of Trinidad and Tobago for however many years, and you don't wish to be called to the bar of Guyana, you can't. Yeah. So BPC again remains a very, very important option, and of course the LEC from Hewarding. Yeah. Okay. Are you all teaming up with local schools for this push? Well, that's why we invited you here. We teamed up from before. The focus has to be on the individual students to make a push in terms of how many students are in fact affected. So follow the form, please, and join the WhatsApp group, and we'll organize accordingly. Yeah. Michelle. Appeal to the current chairman of the Caribbean community to ensure professionals do not. Michelle, this is not a young issue. You may not know, but you can check out the Barnett report on the provision of legal education in the Caribbean region. Yeah. So you can reach people politically. There have been several challenges, over the years, legal and otherwise. But the fact is that the CLE is to strengthen legal education in the Caribbean. It was meant to do that. And the idea is that greater focus on Caribbean legal education, more we can create and develop indigenous Caribbean jurisprudence. Yeah. So Trinidad is one of the very few in the Caribbean that actually accepts the LPC. Others accept the BPC, and that's because when you do the BPC, you have to be called to the bar of England and Wales. Yeah. Can the SQE be completed online? Stephanie, good question. Yes, you can complete the SQE online. Yeah. I can have another session with you on the SQE, and I can invite persons from the university to break it down for you. We can certainly do that. Yeah. We just need a voice at a regional table. Michelle, you'll be surprised as to how much time this has taken place at all levels. Trust me, it's not for want of a push. In fact, in our time, and I'm getting old now, but in my time, they took in 12 persons with the entrance exam. A few years after that, it took in 150 people. So when they had the space, and they did create spaces, by the way, they did attempt to create spaces. And that first year, almost everyone who wrote the entrance exam got in, 150 of them, next year 80 something. So there really was an attempt by Hewarding to clear up the backlog. And then, of course, we had the LPC online, which added greater flexibility and affordability to students. So that really did help as well. Yeah. Also, people, even if you apply to Hewarding is fully part-time. Yeah. Sorry, it's fully full-time. It's completely full-time. Over the last few years during COVID, classroom online, and over the last 2 years, they had a mixture hybrid, half online, half face-to-face. From last September, it's now fully face-to-face. So many persons who work and study, unless you are afforded some degree of flexibility from your job, it would be a difficult thing to do. Yeah. So we do understand students' needs, and of course, hence the push. Can we attain 2 years qualifying work experience in Trinidad? Yes, but that is only necessary if in the amended law they require such, unless you wish to be called to the bar of the UK. So the LAC allows holders to get called to the bar. Yes. The whole idea of the Council of Legal Education was to provide training for Caribbean lawyers. Now, the people at the table appear to have switched that, because before, lawyers had to go to England to be trained. And, they were well respected, and now tables have changed. Hewarding opened in 1973, and now, yeah. So someone asked earlier about recognizability, I guess. Yeah. Some employers do prefer the LEC. Yeah. But people, when you get into practice, it would not matter much. I can tell you from my own experience, it wouldn't matter much. You may not know this, but a lot of the lawyers that make our headlines went through ILAS. We've produced thousands of lawyers. A lot of them who are English persons went through ILAS, as well as, of course, at least did the University of London program at the highest levels. So, and that is to say that you can do your LPC/SQE, for example, just fine, because when you get into practice, it's a different kind of learning. You put in your work, you will do well, as we have seen our alumni doing, and many others. Yeah. Okay. Stephanie, the reality is then that we can't be sure. Well, we can't. I'm sorry, unfortunately, I'm not the Attorney General. I'm not in government. We can only engage them frontally. Let me use that word. And, I also hope for the best. We do live in a democracy, and there are many avenues of getting things done. But you are the most immediate stakeholders of concern. You with me? Hence, we're engaging you today, and we're trying to get ourselves organized so that in the event we have to rely upon you, we can. And of course, we'll have a very easy way of communicating with you and giving you updates. You with me? SQ1, 2, it depends on the provider. Different persons provide training. So it does depend on the provider. Yeah. If I can send the one second. So I'm resending the link per your request of your colleague. Yeah. Marvel, check to see the messages with the links to the form. You might be right, Okay. So if you got the link now for the form, and let me resend the WhatsApp link. Yeah, okay, excellent, great. Yeah. Abigail is asking, what's the time frame as well as the difference in the curriculum of both? I kind of raised that before. The core LPC content is covered under the SQ1, and SQ2 is dedicated towards practical legal skills. In terms of the cost, there is a cost to write the exam. That the SQ exams, both of them will come to about a little less than £5,000. Yeah. And in terms of tuition, if you want a qualification, like an LM in the SQE, which is an LM in legal practice, covering the SQE, it starts at about £10,000. Yeah. Those are rough estimates. Rough estimates. Yeah. Yeah. Pincraze, again, unless you will qualify for the BPC, then yes. But let's hope that things pull through as soon as possible. But the pressure has to be up, and we need your input for that. Okay, people. So please join the WhatsApp group and share the link to your colleagues. I'll put it up again, as well as, of course, the Google Form, so that we can organize ourselves. Yeah. Okay. In terms, just a slide for those who may be interested. So it's called the BVC, the BPC, the BPTC. You will see it called different things by different universities. Basic entry requirements, at least an upper second class honors degree. Some universities accept a 2.1, sorry, a 2.2, but that's rare. It's very competitive. Yeah. Full-time and part-time, but it's only face-to-face. But has several campuses. Yeah. Tuition starts from 12,200. That is just tuition, not boarding. So if you want to study in London, it can go up to £19,000. Now, there are lawyers in Trinidad who, irrespective of where they studied, they may have gone to UE, and there are many UE students who prefer to do the LPC. Yeah? And of course, there are those who will go from UE straight to England to do the BPC or the BVC. And that's because, of course, when you're called, you will be a barrister. So you'll see some lawyers have signs and they will say they are barrister and attorney at law. Yeah. Some regard it as a more prestigious route. Well, the training people is high quality. But remember, you're being trained to be an advocate. In Trinidad, we don't recognize advocates versus solicitors in terms of separate routes, but in terms of functions, we have advocate attorneys, we have instructing attorneys. There are those who specialize in advocacy. Some of you may just be instructing attorneys, and you may hire an advocate to do the advocacy for you if you are dealing with something contentious in court. Yeah. But this training is specific. You have to join certain fraternities, what we call Inns of Court. Inns of Court membership, there are 4 of them. You are trained, well trained. If I'm to share the experience of one of our students who did the BPC several years ago, it's pricey because it contains a number of events, for example, dinners, etc. So you're being trained. At one event, which really was just a regular dinner, they thought, judges attended the dinner, and then we required to debate with judges on the spot. You're not being marked for it on that occasion, but they are training you to be an advocate. So when you complete, you are competent. In fact, that's what they mark by virtue of your competence, very competent, etc. Yep. Now, in terms of ULaw, and why ULaw is in the top 2 of the in the UK, is that now ULaw also runs LLBs, not in Trinidad, but they have LLBs as well. But what ULaw does is that they fashion their programs to reflect what happens in actual practice. So how they design assignments, when the assignments are due, etc., they are designed to reflect actual practice. You get me? Both for the LPC And of course, well, you'd imagine for the SQ and of course for the BPC or BVC. Yeah. So of course, once you collect information, we can engage you. You can reach out to us, and we can guide you accordingly. We have different departments at ILAS that deal with different programs. So the last slide will give you the information if you have to get information on the LPC, BPC, SQE, etc. Calling the phone, generally speaking, just call the numbers or email us directly based on information provided on our final slide. Yeah. The University of Law also offers cash back. So if you aren't employed within 15 months of graduating, they give you back your money. There's an SQE guarantee as well, right? If you don't pass the first time, what you get back, etc. That's how confident they are in their quality. Yeah. So if you need more information on it, just for general information's sake, we can certainly organize an event surrounding the SQE or surrounding the BPC, and you can see at least what your options are. You may not enroll in the BPC, but it's important to know what your options are. Yeah. Okay. Any more questions so far, people? Let me see a few in the chat. What's the financial difference? Not much, you know. No, it adds up to around the same thing, £15,000, because the tuition will be one cost, right? And as you know, through ILAS, people get a discount with University of Law. But the raw figure is about £10,000 for tuition, but you have separate fees to pay when you decide to write the exams. Remember, the exams are not held by the University of Law for the purposes of getting the qualification, right? It's governed by, it's administered by, or controlled by the SRA, but the contractor for administering the exam specifically is Kaplan. With me? So everyone writes the same exam. So you can actually get the qualification, the SQ qualification, if you wish, and you can then decide when you wish to write SQ1 and then SQ2. Yeah. Can you name some of the local which are part of the Well, there aren't many law schools. We have ATS and we have SAMS. Yeah. Okay. Would this recording be made available? Yes, I will post it to our Facebook page. I really did attempt to stream it live to our Facebook page as well, but somehow the technology was not technologizing this evening. So I will upload this to our Facebook page. It's easy to find. I'm even posting the WhatsApp group when you all join. I can post it there as well for ease of access. So you can listen to it and that kind of thing. Yeah. Mary, would the performance at the LLB level be considered for your acceptance to complete the BVC? Yes. Right in front of you. They look for at least a 2.1. Yeah. So it matters. It matters. Can we pursue the SQE remotely? Yes. You can online. So since you have all these questions, what I will do, I will organize a webinar with you law people, and you can get some insight into all of this, just to get great insight into the SQE from those who are in the SQE. You with me? So we can organize that for you, definitely. Showing, if you do the BPC, are you still required to complete 6 months training in Trinidad? The answer is yes. Yeah, the answer is yes. Also, people, you might find this to be a bit of interesting information. If you do the BPC, you can then go to one of the law schools in the Caribbean to do the LEC. But you must, of course, be called to the bar of England and Wales. So when you do the BPC, you can be called to the bar there. And we have had students who did the BPC, and then they did the LEC at Wooding. But over the last few years, they have offered what we call the transitional program at Wooding at different law schools. So 1 year it's at Eugene Puch in Bahamas, another year it's at Wooding. So you have to track that as well. So it is possible because the LEC does have significant value in the Caribbean. Yeah, people? So yes, a lot of information to be shared, a lot to be clarified. So I'm very happy that you all joined us today. Yeah. So in light of the effort to have the SQE recognized in Trinidad, you can contact us accordingly. You can WhatsApp or call, that is my number. So WhatsApp at any point in time, you can call. We'll help you address some of the questions you may have. If you have any questions about the LPC specifically, that's the email address, or you can WhatsApp or call if you wished. I give you my other email address as well. But for our campaign for the SQE, let's call it that, please join the WhatsApp group and please complete the Google form. And once you do that, of course, I will be in contact with you and I will give you updates. And of course, if we have anything offering, we have quite a few offerings. We do try to organize free lectures on aspects of civil practice and all kinds of things. I'll give you those updates as well. Yeah. Mahabir, when is a bar call in Trinidad and how do you find this information? Well, when you complete your training, you then have to obtain documents such as a certificate of fitness from the Law Association, and then you have to submit a petition to the court, right? But the Supreme Court will announce when they have a bar call. The main call is in November. That's the hearing batch and all others who would have completed the training and gotten their paperwork by then. So we know for sure that 2 weeks or so in November, that is the main call. Yes. There is another call usually in March, sometimes in May. So what they do, they organize a call depending on how many students they have. Yeah. And it is also possible, exceptionally people, it is possible to be called at a private ceremony. I have called a student who had to travel urgently and couldn't wait until the ceremony, well, the group call. So they made an application to the registrar, and the registrar organized a judge to do a private ceremony. And she was called to the bar on that basis. But I imagine you would not be petitioning or reaching the registrar to organize private ceremonies. But sometimes there may be three ceremonies or a minimum 2 per year. In the first half of the year, and of course, in the second half. Yeah. You came in late. Can I do a quick summary at the end, please? Okay, sure. Kadira, after you complete the LLB, if you choose the SQE, you write SQE 1 and 2 exams, then complete 6 months training, that's it. Well, yes, effectively speaking. Yes, when you complete your 6 months, that is just your training completed there. You then have to obtain your relevant documents, one of which is from the Law Association, which more or less says you are fit. It calls a scholar certificate of fitness. You obtain that, and then, of course, you have to complete a petition. In Trinidad and Tobago, you are called to the bar by presenting a petition or having a petition presented on your behalf. So you have to get a lawyer to call you to the bar. Yeah? So it's like a court application where you have to complete an affidavit, append or exhibit your certificates, etc. It's an exciting process, I imagine. Although some might find it to be frustrating sometimes. But you will get a precedent and you'll be just fine. Yeah? Okay. So just to recap, people, because I did say an hour, we are just 5 minutes past 7 now. The LPC, which our laws in Trinidad cater for to be one of the qualifying options to access the legal profession. The LPC is being phased out and replaced with the SQE. And that has already affected students who completed the degrees last year and continuing. So because of the cutoff date set by the SRA to be able to access the SQE for the remainder of the years that is going to be available for, that is, if you started your degree after 2021, you are no longer, well, you're not eligible to do the LPC as your vocational training. The only option is for solicitors is the SQE. But our laws under Section 15(1)A of the LPA caters for the BPC, BVC, BPTC, and the LPC. So we want the SQE to be accepted in Trinidad in lieu of the LPC. And that requires, obviously, legislative reform. So I convened this meeting to have people fully informed. And if you have follow-up questions, feel free to WhatsApp, call, that kind of thing. And we'll clarify for you. I'll also organize sessions on the BPC and the SQE, and I will communicate that to you so that you can be, of course, fully apprised of what your options are. And obviously, I will keep you apprised of all developments taking place in terms of the AG and moves to have the SQE recognized in Trinidad. Yeah, I hope I did a decent job in summarizing what we discussed today. Yeah. Any questions, people? No? Okay. Well, that's it for now. Thank you very much for your attendance and for your questions. Again, I will upload this video to our Facebook page. I will also send this to the WhatsApp group so you can look at it. And again, I will keep you apprised of the things I just listed. Yeah. All right, people, well, take care. You're most welcome. And we will chat soon. Yeah. Okay. Take care. Good evening.